So maybe just a little bit of background. APCOA was founded in 1947 in the US in Cleveland as Airport Parking Corporation of Americas. That's still what the APCOA stands for. We've been in Europe since 50 years or 51 years now. We started in 1970 at Stuttgart Airport as our first European site. And we don't have a business anymore in the US. The company has been splitted couple of years back, and we are just now a European company. So, what is APCOA today? We are the leading car park operator in Europe. We have a presence in 13 countries. In most of them, we are among the top 2 or even the number 1 with regard to market share. We have an asset-light model, means we don't own our car parks, we just rent them, we manage them, we do the services on all of those car parks, and we also act in several business sectors. For sure, we still are in travel, and for those of you who are also part of the airport networking events, normally, especially from those events, we operate 60 airports in Europe. Airports still represent 20% of our business. But we also do a lot around healthcare, universities. We have a big business around enforcement for municipalities, especially in the UK, but also in Italy and Belgium. And we also do enforcement on private ground, especially in Scandinavia. 50% of our business is still with everything around city and shopping centers, but we also do a lot of events and hospitalities. That is like the Elbphilharmonie you see on the picture here, but we also do the Wembley Arena in London, where we had the FA Cup last week. So this is the company as it was before we went into the COVID crisis. During the crisis, you know, like most of the parking operators, we suffered massively due to lower frequencies in our garages and the entire lockdowns and government measures in all our countries. And we said, okay, our strategy is that we will come out stronger out of those crises. We still have that not yet behind us. The good thing is we have seen in the last summer that when the lockdowns has been released, all the volumes have come back to our garages, and we hope to see this also for the course of this summer. But we also used the phase of COVID to refresh our strategy, revitalize some of the parts we had before, and this is what I want to show you in this session today. So APCOA is a growth platform on multiple levers. We have a massive new business engine, so we add around 1,000 sites per annum to our car park portfolio, and the key drivers for this is unpaid to paid. That means we start paid parking services on sites where parking was free before, and free means there is never free parking on private ground. Somebody else has to pay for it. And we are discussing with a lot of clients how we can commercialize the parking and generate revenue for our landlords and ourselves. We go into new sectors. We see especially residential as a key sector for private parking services as a key growth lever for us. And with the launch of several digital offerings, we enter new territories and can also offer services where we haven't been able to offer services before, like take ski areas in the north of Norway, where normally nobody is really around, where you don't have manned operations, but with digital services, we are able to operate those. We do a lot M&A, so we have done 2 acquisitions per annum over the last years. So we acquired NCPS in Ireland, 1 park in Denmark. Last year we acquired Expert Parking in Sweden, Security Parking in Norway. A couple of years back we did Schaffhausen real estate in Switzerland, and we also acquired Alpina in India, parking in Germany in the last years. And we also took some equity in an Indian startup to help us driving our digital transformation of the group. We also do a lot around technology leadership. We see ourselves in a clear leadership role in this market with regard to B2C, but also B2B. The key focus on all our digital offerings is to offer consumers much more convenience for their parking experience. And via our digital offerings, we also collect a lot of consumer insights we then can monetize and commercialize together with our clients, our landlords. And last but not least, and that's the focus of today's session, that is all around transforming our car parks into urban hubs. And that is all about having new use cases, additional services in our garage, which are not particularly parking related. And we do this via sustainable relationships and partnerships with some of the key players in the industry. Last but not least, before I go into the detail, we changed our group strategy. So in the past, we said we want to connect parking and mobility. And with the launch of the urban hubs, we also changed our strategy in a way that we say we're not only connecting parking and mobility, but also with urban life. As I mentioned before, 50% of our business is in urban areas. And that's why we want to be part of those urban areas and be part of a smart city environment. We also have defined an ESG agenda. For that, we want to be carbon neutral. We want to have a 100% electric fleet. We see ourselves as a key driver to solve this chicken egg problem around electrification in our economies, meaning like a lot of people are complaining when they want to buy electric vehicles that there are not enough charging points. We do a massive transformation of our car parks at the moment and a massive rollout of electric charging points in all our car parks to also fuel the electrification of the economies. And for sure, we do a lot around processes with ISO certifications, quality improvements via Six Sigma methodologies. All right, so let me get into urban hubs and maybe start with a little bit of what are the key drivers in the business, why we initiated this strategy. And we've seen it especially in the COVID times that long-term trends like the growth of e-commerce, the electrification, urbanization are accelerating, and for sure we need to adapt. When you look at the European e-commerce market, it's a massive development over the last couple of years, and particularly in the last 12 months, where when you talk to one of the DHL or UPS guys who bring the parcels to your house every day, that basically now they are in a status that every day is like Christmas time. And all of those parcels need to be brought into the city in a way, and you cannot, let's say, apply the methodologies you had over the last years with big vans, diesel vans driving into the city, dropping off parcels. That is changing at the moment. You see much more those electro rickshaws and any other type of electric vehicles driving for the last mile. That's one of the key areas, logistics, we focus on in urban hubs. The other one is around electric vehicles, especially electric cars, but also fleets in total. But also the ownership of cars are changing massively. We talk about car sharing cars. We talk about scooters, mopeds, bikes. They all need to be charged in the city center. That's where they are the entire day. Some of them have swappable batteries, some not. But charging is a key thing for the growth of those companies. And we as APCOA position ourselves as a big partner for them to help them charging. And last but not least, you see that the urbanization, maybe except for London, continues. All our European cities are growing massively. So stuff is getting much more dense in the cities. People cannot afford, let's say, big apartments anymore. Apartments getting smaller. They need to store stuff somewhere else. That's why also the storage companies are growing, and that's also why we believe car parks could be a good case for the storage of those type of things. So we launched the Urban Hub, and basically what we want to do is we want to provide the physical and digital infrastructure for sustainable urban life. That means infrastructure we have, although we don't own the sites, but we operate those 12,000 sites all over Europe. And this is an excellent infrastructure to support all those use cases. We talk about mobility stuff. This is about intermodal, or as I said before, scooters, car sharing, and so on. We talk about the electrification, whereas I just want to point out that the focus for us is not only on B2C use case for EV charging, it's also about fleets. And you see that there's much more electric fleets out there. They need to be charged in city centers and everything around micromobility. I mentioned the logistics part before. There's a lot of fulfillment, there's assembling, recommissioning, stuff is brought into the city center or the rings of the city center and then distributed to the final location on the last mile via new vehicles. That's why there is space needed for all those repackaging and so on in the city center. And then we talk about new tech and services. That is everything which is proximity or community services. At the moment, it's all around COVID test centers, vaccination centers, but it's also around providing washing machines, micro maintenance for cars. Last year, we had big cinema concert events in our sites. To dig a little bit deeper into this, that's one of my favorite slides, because what we want to do is not that we have, let's say, built monocultures with one use case in one garage. We believe in the ecosystem as part of smart cities. With our key lessons learned over the last couple of months is that there are a lot of use cases are related to each other and or are connected. No? So you generate energy via photovoltaic systems or wind turbines, then use it for fleet charging, EV charging. They also need to park then their cars overnight. They need warehousing in the warehouse or self-storage. There is last mile delivery logistics hubs. They also place stuff in locker boards, which we have in most of our
I believe there's a small hiccup with your audio, Frank, at the moment.
Looks like we can't hear.
No. Frank, if I can briefly interrupt. I see you speaking, but we don't hear you at the moment.
at the Stuttgart airport, which we believe will be a big thing in the future. Sorry?
Your audio dropped out for a minute there, but it's working again.
Okay, sorry. Where did it stop?
About 30 seconds ago, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so you see that on the logistics side, of this business, you see a lot of stuff need to be brought into the city center. It's then either put into an urban warehouse and waiting for final distribution, or it's directly distributed via any electric rickshaws and so on. Or it's put into locker boards into there. You also see ghost kitchens where food is prepared and then delivered somewhere else. We have car dealerships where car dealers are not used to anymore to dedicated locations, but want to have some pop-up stores over weekends to present their new electric vehicles, for example. We also see in the entire mobility area that it's car sharing and car rental are not using any more dedicated stations, but now going into flexible app-driven car rental. All those cars need to be parked somewhere, and therefore we see our garages ideally being in the situation to cover all those needs. Micromobility, so you drive into the city center, park in a garage at the ring, and then maybe take for the last mile a moped, a scooter, a bike, whatever. We started with autonomous valet parking last year at the Stuttgart airport, together with Bosch and Daimler. That's a thing we see very much growing with high demand now in all our countries. And I believe that latest in 2-3 years, we will see this as a kind of normal appliance. That for sure is a challenge for our landlords and our garages, because you need then more drop-off zones, pickup zones for autonomous valet parking. But that's something we see at the moment growing relatively fast. And as I said before, in the entire new tech area, we have at the moment a lot of COVID test stations, vaccination stations, but also cinemas, concerts. We see distributed manufacturing, where final assembly of cars is done in car parks. You might know, for those of you who bought a Tesla, you know where you pick up your new car. That will also change. That they will use inner city locations for pickups like this. But it's also around micro maintenance, where we started now exchanging windshields, changing tires, doing micro maintenance on cars, updates of software, and so on, and for sure 5G antennas on rooftops. You might those are the use cases we see at the moment, but there's also that every week again additional use cases pop up in our with all the discussions we have with potential partners, and we believe that it's a great strategy to transform car parks into something which caters not only for parking but also for any other stuff which supports a smart city environment and really changes the urban life. One of the key components we have, and that's something I cannot emphasize more, is that the basis for all the interactions with our partners, especially let's say the billing processes, the real-time APIs, and so on, is that you need a digital platform for this, who caters for this. There we use our APCOA Flow platform, which we launched. I think it was in 2016, and hopefully by end of the year have finally rolled it out through all our entities in all our countries. So what is APCOA Flow? It's basically a backend platform. In some countries, we also have a user app for this, for let's say like any other parking app, which enables you to drive into a garage, pay, drive out of the garage, do some pre-booking stuff, and so on. But it's also a backend platform which interconnects with all of our partners, so that we can notify them when logistic vehicles, car sharing, rental cars enter garage, when rental times end, or let's say to support KPI management for all of our partners. We plan, in most of our garages, we already work mainly with number plate recognition. Germany is the last island where we work with RFID tags, but also in the course of this year, we want to replace this completely with the number plate recognition as the key exit and entry methodology. In most of the cases, especially the more you go north, we even work without any barriers. I think the barrier type of car park is, let's say, still a continental and Southern Europe thing, but in our Scandinavian car parks, we don't have any barriers anymore. Yeah, so that's it basically about Flow. So why is it so relevant for our partners to work with us on all of those topics? And why do they work with APCOA? There are some simple reasons. So first of all, we give them the opportunity to basically work with a parking operator who is in 13 countries, so that they don't have to talk to several other parking operators. You know that the parking market in Europe is still very much fragmented. With now 12,000 sites in this year, we have a massive density and footprint where partners can pick sites from. We cover basically all tier 1 cities in the 13 countries we are operating in, and cover more than 1,000 cities. And since we are with the key focus on city centers and larger cities, also cover more than 230 million of the European population for all of those touch points the partners have also with consumers. And as I said before, we are growing massively on the new business side and taking new sites on board. This is also a growing site network, and you see from the historical numbers that we've grown over the last years massively, and we will continue to do this over the next years. On top of that, we are a trusted partner. When we talk about our relationships to landlords, we have about 98% retention rate of our contracts. So normally our clients are very, very satisfied with our services and renew the contracts with us. We work with 80% of the top 100 European real estate investors as our clients, and our average contract duration is more than 20 years, which gives for sure a very long-term perspective. And especially when we talk about electric vehicles or charging infrastructure, we have, let's say, we can provide the contract terms for them to enable also long-term investment cycles and payback times. And we have something around 300 million parking transactions at the moment, which are also great touch points for consumers. When you look at the physical infrastructure, most of the garages have 24/7 access, which is important for logistics, but also for car sharing and so on. And on top of that, given our footprint in city centers, we have a lot of rooftop space in city centers, which we also use for beach bars and cinemas. But it's also very relevant for, let's say, when you think about 5G antennas, drone logistics, and so on. They are an excellent space, which is normally not used for parking, as you might all know that nobody really wants to park at the rooftop and tries to park his car at the more relevant floors. But that's why we want to monetize also those type of square meters of parking we have. We provide 2.2 million square meters for logistics space, and let's say if you combine all the energy access we have to the grid, that represents over all of our 12,000 sites, 3.5 terawatt, which is a great grid connection, especially when you think about charging and so on. And we already have this great network to partners. Then combined with our digital platform, we also see ourselves as a kind of incubator for several of those use cases. We're talking to a lot of startups and are willing also to enter very flexible, innovative commercial model. It's not about renting the space to somebody and asking them for a long-term rental commitment. We want to do this very much transaction-based to also support the growth of those startup companies, especially in the logistic or last mile distribution of food and whatever type of services you can imagine. So as I said before, we see ourselves as an umbrella, especially for our landlords who are looking for, let's say, always opportunities to increase their asset value, to make their assets much more future-proof. We act as an umbrella for all our partners in this, because most of the real estate companies don't have, let's say, the staffing or the experts on their side, and therefore they trust in our competence and also our key focus on driving additional revenues for them. And that results then finally into something which is a real tangible value for our landlords. So they have an intelligent diversification of their asset. You know, in the real estate world, you always differentiate between different asset classes. and if you do logistics in a garage and some other stuff, you can even split out a part of your asset into a different asset class, which comes then maybe with a different valuation for this. We secure and increase the cash flows, so it's not anymore just parking for logistics. It's more long-term, more stable revenues, also on days and hours over the week where you normally don't have a lot of parking revenues. We help them. Most of our landlords also have an ESG agenda. They are now also from the owners of funds, from the people who invest into real estate. They are looking much more now for green investments. They ask investors, what do you do about the environment? And ask us as an operator for the carbon footprint. That's something where we improve from that side. And last but not least, we basically also have we decrease the dependency on the sole revenue stream parking, which is definitely after the COVID crisis something which is very relevant for most of our landlords, because as you can imagine, don't know, and we're happy to discuss this with you, our frequencies and our revenues in some of our inner city garages went down 90% versus 2019 in the course of the lockdowns last year. And that's why we first time after it always went up and up and up, but now this COVID also sets back some of the strategies and the business models you had in the past, and now it's also about, let's say, diversification of revenues, and de-risking from sole contributors in this area. And for sure, when you think about let's say office real estate where you have a garage connected, also landlords want to have innovative offerings in their garages, especially with regard to mobility, scooters, bikes, mopeds, car sharing, and so on, to make their entire estate much more attractive also for potential office tenants and so on. So that's basically what we provide to the landlords. But to sum it up, for us, it's really all about being part of and that's what we've had here in our strategy. We want to the parking asset as it have been in the past solely just used for parking at let's say the city ring or in the city center, not really, let's say, the most liked asset class from cities and from the population. It stands for traffic, it stands for pollution, and so on. We want to change this now really into a something different, which for sure, because parking will always be needed. There are a lot of people still driving into the city center. They need a parking space, but maybe not that much anymore like there was in the past. And that's why it's so important to transform this assets into multi-purpose assets, and therefore support still the mobility in the city, but also the entire urban life and the society in the surroundings of our car parks. So that was basically for my presentation. Are there any questions, any points you want to discuss? For sure, there are challenges around that, because most of those car parks have a building permission for parking, and it's not easy to repurpose the space into storage or into logistics. But let's say over the last years, we've now seen also much more openness from municipalities and administrations to support this transformation.
Thanks so much, Frank, for your insight. This is extremely interesting. There's one question that rolled in through the chat, but Erwin, maybe you wanna ask that live and get a bit of a discussion going. I also want to ask each and every one of you wants to take part in the discussion to turn your webcams and microphones on, so that we can just have a chat. I'm sure we all missed getting together and being able to have a normal conversation about the industry. So I'm hoping to get some interactiveness going here. So Erwin, if you wanna kick kick it off and ask Frank your question, please.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
loud and clear.
Yeah, so Frank, thank you for the presentation. It was quite insightful. I'm actually working for a startup myself. We are engaged in video analytics for various instances and let's say management of traffic related, I would say, assets, including traffic on roads is one of those that we do. And I have one particular question here, talking about innovation, right? What type of technologies is APCOA actually looking at this moment, and what type of capabilities are currently a priority when you spoke about the different dimensions of where APCOA's business is today?
Yeah, so I think the easiest technology part is the entry access of a garage. This is what we do with number plate recognition. But for sure, we also need to upgrade our garages themselves. As you can imagine, it starts with really the basic stuff. So we need network coverage in all our garages, ideally on all our floors. Otherwise, you cannot lock out a car rental session or a car sharing session. Or also with logistics, they do a lot of online stuff in tracking, reading barcodes, and so on. So that's also a key prerequisite to transform a garage into an urban hub is a network coverage. Second topic is all around CCTV cameras. We are having several pilots around this because we need to monitor the traffic. What we want to do is basically like like an airline, also monitor occupation, not only, let's say, at the barrier where it's counting the number of cars in the car park. We will also want to understand where exactly is the occupancy, where is free space, how can we use it for other purposes? Can we maybe also have some flexible parking spaces? We recently looked at the technology where you can do XXL parking kind of on demand with technology built in the floor of the garage, where you can change the size of a car parking space, kind of flexible. And then when we talk about autonomous valet parking or autonomous driving, that's also something which is where, from my perspective, there is no clear answer yet if the technology will be in the car. I know that, for example, our partner Bosch has a strategy that they want to make the car park intelligent and that the car park drives the car, where there are also other players who think that the car needs to be intelligent and drive itself into the car park and just needs to be equipped with the right set of cameras to recognize the car park, the walls, and so on.
I think, yeah, thanks for the answer. There is one thing, because we had actually worked with the Dubai International Airport, and they had actually similar situations. On one hand, like if you talk about just saying one most prominent company, which is Tesla, that actually does these things where car parking lots are identified automatically. But for most of these situations that we saw, is there's always kind of a handshake between authorities and owners, and they always want to go into the area of who is authorized to, let's say, enter a certain space or not. I think that's probably also something which is valid in your case. And I believe around all these things, the different service providers and so forth, that's probably where, even if this is a transition, as you pointed out, maybe because we don't really know where the end journey will be, but maybe that will be something that is more of a hybrid rather than an either-or situation. Or maybe you have an opinion on that.
You know, I think it's 15 months ago now. It feels like ages, where we presented in Las Vegas together with HERE Technologies solutions for in-car navigation in car parks, and we are working with HERE Technologies also on the creation of digital clones of our car parks, and ideally also directly in 3D, so that they can be used for autonomous driving. This is a
Oh, there's a slight drop off of your audio again, Frank. Sorry.
Yeah.
massive
Frank.
investment, and let's say, given the COVID crisis, we didn't see a break funds, because at the end when you look at what we have today for our car parks, that sometimes are architectural drawings from the 60s or 70s, which have been part of the building permissions, and so we do this as a basis now, and then HERE Technology with some partners also goes with robots through our garages to do a complete scan of the entire environment, because for sure you also want to add then payment points, where are the elevators, exits, where are the charging points, and so on. All of those information, which then either land in an app on a smartphone or in the car directly.
Yeah, as the typical S-Grid challenge. So maybe a last point, because I believe others have questions as well.
Yeah, there's more questions. So a quick one for you, Erwin, then.
Like small companies, how would they engage with APCOA? Maybe I'm speaking hopefully also on behalf of others. How would companies engage with APCOA in getting, let's say, into discussions?
Yeah, so we have a landing page for urban hubs, which is, let's say, the entry door for all our activities around urban hubs. But you can also contact me via LinkedIn or Niels Christ, who is in charge of our urban hub strategy at the group. Or at country level. So I think we have at our web pages, we have all our contact details, and we are very much interested in most of the discussions and learn. You know, it's a new time. That's why I also said we work with a lot of startups. It's all about learning, testing stuff. Nobody knows exactly how the future will look like, and we don't want to be religious and let's say just work with one technology and so on. We want to try a lot and be very, very open in all directions on this.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
I think that's the way to improve. So there's another question. I don't know if this has been answered in the meantime. Frank Beckman, I don't know if you have a working microphone. Otherwise, I'll read the question.
Yes, I can answer that. Thanks very much. My name is Frank Beckman. I was a managing director of a leading car park operator here in Germany. I'm for 5 years consultant for digital parking and advisor in this field. My question is, Frank, thanks very much. Very interesting. You said you want to diversify your revenues and add new revenue sources. And I remember you have the field of charging on your screen. Charging requires a lot of investments, upfront investment, but it doesn't return much profit for that one. So how you create additional profitability by your shown use cases, especially since I think the majority of profitability still will come from parking. So what about business modeling towards that?
So the charging market itself is extremely fragmented all over Europe, no? So whereas in Norway, it's a relatively good business, given the number of electric cars and the utilization of the charging points. But when I look at our German entity, we invested, I think, in 2016 in 200 charging points and have to replace them now because they are not compliant to the official legislation anymore. And that was definitely a bad investment. No? At this moment in time, we work mainly with partners for charging. So we don't want to, let's say, basically take the full investment or the full capex into charging points. We work more in a, let's say, concession model that we allow others to operate EV charging in our garages, like in a shop concept, because let's say, as I said before, we've invested a lot a couple of years back. Then the electric vehicles didn't come. If we would equip all our sites based on our own capex with charging points, that would be unaffordable for us. The other thing where I see that the business cases get much better than they have been in the past is around fleet charging. So when you are completely dependent on consumers driving into your garage and charging their car, that's maybe a high risk business case. Whereas when you have a fixed commitment from B2B clients who want to charge their fleet every night, then this is a sound business case, because there you have the fixed utilization and therefore come to paybacks which are more, let's say, around 30% of the investment cycle and not anymore like 80% or so, or it has been in the past.
Okay, thanks very much, Frank.
I've seen also a question from Adnan.
Yes.
How we see the frequencies coming back. The good thing is we use also those traffic index from INRIX and so on. So what we see is that what we've seen last summer, that the frequencies came back much faster than we thought after the lockdowns have been released. We also see at the moment a massive increase in contract parking. That is the case because even some employers offer their employees to pay for a fixed parking space in the city center to motivate them to come back to the office and not work from home and not using public transport. I think public transport is something which at the moment is where a lot of people hesitate to use it to get into the city center and therefore use more their own car. And there are a lot of employers for sure who will allow much more home office than before. But given, let's say, the interviews I have done with a couple of executives over the last weeks, I believe that there will be kind of 3 to 4 work days, maybe only 3 work days in the office. And to facilitate this as an employer, you also have to motivate your employees in a way that you offer them parking spaces and so on. And that's why also we diversified our contract parking offering and said, okay, you don't need a full subscription model with a long contract term. You can also have seasonal tickets and so on for special weekdays, as long as we have a good planning horizon when those parking spaces are used for by cars. We then can also market the other hours then to somebody else.
I hope that answers the question for Adnan. Adnan, again, you're welcome to share your webcam and microphone if you want to add to this discussion.
On the other side, for sure, my biggest worry, and I just see that there's also a comment about retail. For sure, that's my biggest worry, that you know, we had long discussions with our landlords about rents during lockdowns, like also all the retailers had in the city center, and you've seen a few have gone bust already. And for me personally, it would be a disaster if, let's say, in all those city centers the retailers die, because then the city center will be empty and not that attractive anymore. You cannot fill everything with restaurants and bars and fitness centers and so on. I think for a good urban life, retail need to be part of the city center, and for sure that also makes the city center kind of attractive. It's not only office. because when people only go there for work, then in the evening hours the city centers would be empty. That's definitely a worry, but when I look at the entire stimulus programs of all the governments in Europe, not only furlough programs, but also subsidies for fixed cost coverage, percentages of revenues which have been paid as compensation, I'm still optimistic that for sure we won't get back to the level we had in 2019 in the next year, but in the following years, I hope that there will be a revitalization of the city centers.
Definitely. Anyone else wants to add to the discussion? Is anybody with a specific statement or a question? So it's quiet. We have a shy audience, Frank. That's very quiet.
Yeah, I think it's we can all hope that we overcome this crisis relatively shortly. I think the vaccination numbers in most of the countries make me much more optimistic than a couple of weeks back. And for sure, it's not only parking; it's more or less the entire economy who's kind of dependent that we get back to normal business. But for sure, the world will be different than it has been before.
Yeah, so it won't go back to a traditional way of parking, and I think that fits what you just mentioned as well. You're open to more suggestions and developments and innovations from inside this parking industry. So that's good to hear that APCOA and yourself are open to listen and to what people bring to the industry. And I think developments for smart cities, and today has proven that, are going enormously fast. Also a bit forced throughout the pandemic, of course, but it's cool to see that the smarter it gets, the faster it goes. So I'm happy to see that development. In the meantime, anyone in the audience with a question for Frank? You don't get this opportunity a lot, so this is your chance. And otherwise, it's almost time to round off anyway, Frank. We've also
I have one, if I may.
Sure.
Just a quick one. Yeah, because it's really an interesting discussion. Is APCOA actually looking in expanding into, let's say, other markets? You mentioned that you have actually not engaged in US anymore, but how about Asia? Is that a market that you are aiming for in some way, or is this totally off your current plans?
No, it's not on our strategic agenda, particularly not Asia, America, South America, and so on. This parking business is very, very much scale matters in this business, and we've pulled out of countries. We've been in Spain, we've been in France, we've also been in Israel and Turkey. A couple of years back, we always try to enter those markets by, let's say, renting 2-3 garages and try to grow from there. But that's very, very hard and very difficult. The only thing I could imagine that this could be done via the acquisition of a company, but not in an organical way. But we are monitoring, especially the US market and the Asian market very, very closely to also see what type of innovations are going on there, what is the user behavior. Some of the stuff is easy transportable to Europe, other stuff not, because simply the population is driven by different things or completely different. So think about valet parking, which is something which is very, very normal in the US. We tried it several times in Europe, but obviously it's not that interesting for consumers in Europe.
Yeah, that's true. even the Middle East is like it's almost the only way to park sometimes.
Yeah, but you know, we have valet parking at some of our airports. There, it's a kind of exclusive offering for business traveler who use that. But at shopping malls and so on, it's still like that. Yeah, especially in Germany, that my car is my castle and I don't want anybody else to drive it. I have so many private stuff in my car. I don't want to hand over the keys to somebody else. No, that's still unfortunately the situation. Would be a good pillar to add additional services to the portfolio, but we tried it several times and it's not really accepted from consumers.
Yeah, there's too much diversity in the market.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
going to round off. Frank, if you don't have anything to add anymore, I want to thank you for a very clear presentation and unique insight into your operation as well. It's exciting to see where things are heading, and we'll follow you every step of the way. To the rest of the audience, thanks so much for joining and listening in. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we did, and thanks for asking your questions. If you have any questions after this, I can imagine that in an hour you think, I should have asked them this or that. Just let us know. You can contact Parking Network. We'll make sure to forward your questions for Frank. So again, thanks everyone for joining. We're going to get ready for the last session by Portier, one of our other valued members. You can still sign up on parkingevent.com if you like, and hope to see you in there. Again, thanks Frank, and also a thank you to Sebastian for organizing this together with us and Frank, and hope to see you soon in person, because that's what we're all yearning for right now. So hope to see you all soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Cheers. Bye-bye.